Hi all. If you watched any of my previous videos on B8s and accuracy, you're probably already well aware of how to dry fire and then how to live fire with an eye towards not disturbing the gun. If you did any of that ball and dummy work, I think it probably helped you clean up your accuracy. And certainly if you did any missteps during your accuracy, it shows you what you do wrong. I very much like dummy rounds for that reason. If you've kind of gotten to the point where dummy rounds at any sort of pace is not particularly helpful because your accuracy is already good, then you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do I now improve my speed? So if we back up, talk about accuracy. Accuracy is simply just aiming the gun and pressing the trigger smoothly to the rear without disturbing the gun until the gun goes bang. Simply said, but obviously there's more to it than that in terms of training your brain and training your reflexes not to do anything before that gun goes bang. But if you've mastered that, or at least acceptably gotten past the hurdle of understanding when you disturbed the gun versus when you didn't, now you're probably going, well, how do I shoot faster? So you could indeed literally just shoot faster, just shoot faster. And I've known at least one shooter who's done that, spent a considerable amount of time and ammunition just shooting fast over and over again until his eyes kind of caught up with the speed and he understood what he was doing. I don't say that is the quickest way, easiest way, but it certainly works. And for him, brilliant shooter. So I can't say enough things about that. So it worked for him. But if you don't have a considerable ammunition budget, then there are probably some things that you want to play with during your live fire shooting to try and feel what's going on and maybe give you some frame of reference. Now, first we have to find a rhythm. Human life is full of rhythm. We walk with a rhythm. We tend to fight with a rhythm. We tend to shoot with a rhythm. But understanding that and finding it for a newer pursuit is difficult. And by the way, I should mention, you should probably read this guy because he talks quite a bit about rhythm. And one of the things that he discusses is finding that rhythm to begin with. So I know that a very high level shooter probably has no need of any of this. They can literally just run with what the gun is telling them through the input of their sighting system to their eyes, and they can adjust their speed accordingly. But I think it takes a little bit of time and experience to get to that point. Now, when we talk about finding a rhythm with a gun, there's a drill that Travis Haley does called his Cadence drill. And he is the first person that I've seen kind of codify it. Doesn't mean that somebody wasn't doing it before him, but I like his drill. And he talks about different cadences or different, I guess, external stimulus to help you shoot with a rhythm. And the first one he does, he literally just, and I'll demo with this gun, but it is a dry fire magazine and an empty gun. So if we talk about our stimulus, it's an out loud count. And the first cadence that you should do is a slow one, like one every second. And you can do Mississippis, you can do thousands, whatever works for you. And this doesn't require, or really shouldn't involve, putting a draw into it or anything else. Really what you want to do is be aimed in on your target with the slack out of the trigger and you're on the sights. And then you should count out loud 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. If you can do that several times, not disturb the sights, track them in recoil, see them lift, see them come back, at that speed, that you're doing well. I often find that for a lot of shooters, going that slow is actually a little more difficult. But keep track of your hits, see what's going on. Practice this at like 5 or 7 yards. But I really, ideally, especially at that speed, we should be keeping them all pretty tight. If we're using a B8 for reference, if you're not at least in the 9 or 10 ring for this one, then it might be time to go back and play with the dummies a little bit more. So, but that's your slow cadence. So we found a rhythm now. We found that rhythm. But once we found a rhythm, if that one's going okay for you and you're smooth and you're consistent, then we need to speed up that rhythm. So the next one is going to be a little faster. I count out loud 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So for that one, same thing. I'm aimed in, slack out, and I count out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. For that. For that one, interestingly, I find it to be kind of the easier one for most people, especially if they've done any shooting, you know, in the 5 to 7 yard range. Now, obviously, if I pull them back to 15 yards, most people, especially at the beginner stages, don't have the grip control or the visual perception to run their gun at that speed once that distance increases. So maybe that's a cadence that's best suited for a little closer. But nevertheless, try that one out. Now, if you've got that one, then we need to start trying to speed it up further. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that gets a little more interesting, and certainly the wheels can come off. But even if you're not capable of perceiving everything at that speed, I feel like it's valuable to go into it and then come out of it. Like, try going back and forth. Because the only real way to, I think, increase your speed is to, quote, increase your speed. If you never shoot fast, you'll never shoot fast, to borrow that tired phrase. But so same thing, if I want to play with that speed, I'm going to be aimed in, slack out, and I'm literally going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can see, I even doofed that one up. So let's try it again. So aim in, slack out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Harder. It is harder. Even dry fire, it's harder. When you watch my live fire versions of it, I was reasonably warm that day, so it was going pretty good for me. So in general, I recommend you play with those cadences. The slow one, I don't know that you're going to need to spend a lot of time at, but definitely medium and faster, I recommend. Between those two, if you can manage to keep your hits reasonably good, especially with that faster cadence at 5 or 7 yards, if you can keep them all in the 8 ring, then I think that's pretty good. And it gives you kind of a frame of reference for like what you can get away with at a speed, at a distance. One of the big problems I see with newer shooters is their ability to gauge what speed they should be shooting given the distance or size of target. I find that a lot of newer shooters have one speed, and that one speed is their speed whether they're at 3 yards or 25 yards. And while that speed might be pretty good for them, 3, 5, maybe even 7 yards, oftentimes the wheels come off the bus at greater distance. And then if they don't have the proper amount of coaching or perspective, they don't understand why their hits start to go away. For shooters like that, sometimes I find it is very helpful to give them kind of some external cadence, because that gives them the opportunity to be pausing and pressing the trigger more carefully as they're still managing the sights. It is also imperative that you understand that when you're using a cadence, that we're not just slamming the trigger on each trigger press, but we are taking up the slack and then adding pressure to the trigger such that it corresponds to that cadence. So if you're looking at the trigger and I'm doing the slower one, I'm adding pressure. I'm going 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Same thing at the faster one. So avoid that mistake of just smashing the trigger each time. I'm just trying to very smoothly run the pressure so that nothing gets moved while I'm running that trigger. But anyway, that's really kind of your next step in terms of trying to get your accuracy. Is you've got your accuracy, now we need to find our speed. So learn how to speed it up, learn how to slow it down. And then once you've kind of mastered that, you can do what you want with it. It's the old, I learned everything about a punch, I mastered the punch, and then I discarded the punch. Same thing. It's more Bruce Lee. Learn everything about how to speed up and slow down until you don't have to learn how to speed up and slow down anymore, because everything makes sense to you. A high-level shooter will tell you, well, I just do what the sights tell me, and I run the gun at that speed. But a high-level shooter has gone through all of these steps, either consciously or subconsciously, and they have then figured out what they need to do in order to get accurate hits at any given distance or target size. Sometimes in our journey to find that, we need something external to us to help us get it. And in that case, I like Cadence. I like Cadence quite a bit, guys. I think it helps out new and even intermediate shooters quite a bit. So I know that ammunition's expensive and your time is probably limited, but if you have the opportunity to get on the range and try this Cadence drill, I mean, you can literally do it with a couple magazines worth, or maybe more if you so desire, then I recommend it. Give it a shot and let me know how it goes. If you do post any questions to any of my comments, I will do my level best to answer them if I am capable of doing so at all, depending on my work schedule. And I really do appreciate your likes, comments, guys. My subscription base is very slowly increasing, but I appreciate any help I can get there as well. So guys, I hope this is helpful to you. Take care, stay safe, train hard.
Get him, Jay.